Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds for myself, Matt, my two co-hosts, Mark
Hello.
and Tyler.
Hello.
Provide our completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. Today, we're back with the good recommendations again because it's my turn. Yeah.
Boo.
And today we are doing 2018's Cold War, which is a black and white film about two artists in Poland during the Cold War, and a little romance ensues, but they have different career paths and different political standings, which makes things very difficult for them to carry out their affair. So that was a really terrible background.
Maybe we should have
because I wasn't prepared for
read
it.
the Wikipedia thing.
What?
Maybe you should have like
No, the
robotically.
Wikipedia thing's even is I'll read it right now. It says, set against the backdrop of 1950s Cold War in Poland, two people of differing backgrounds and temperaments begin an almost impossible romance. So that's also pretty vague.
That's also pretty vague, yeah.
Yeah.
You should read audiobooks now.
Yeah, I should. I'll read When's the Winner now because Roy the Tree can't do it anymore.
Oh no.
Right. Oh God.
Oh God. Oh no.
Rest in
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah.
He's great. But so I've seen this movie once. I'm the only one who's seen this movie for the second time. This is all both of your first times watching it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know you've seen it already.
Yeah, I've seen it once before. So Mark, what did you think of Cold War?
This it's gonna be hard for me to articulate, but I've loved it basically, and
Shit.
but I need to see a film that once, and you're like, some things went past me. There's a lot of themes going on here. I need to be really firm in my opinion. I really need to see this again. But the first thing that stands out to me when I watching this film is just it was beautiful. There's so many sequences where my jaw was just hanging. I was just like, this is something else. And I'm specifically in this time period, I'm fascinated with. I'm reading a book right now that's a satire during this time period. So a lot of the themes that this film touches is what I'm reading about. So it was just it enhanced the experience.
Yeah.
It's short. I would say that, I'm not totally in love with the film. There's parts where my interest in the varied as times went by. I would say I was right from the get-go, I was like, this is great. And then okay, this is there's so many amazing shots, but my interest itself in the plot lessened, and then I got real into it towards the end. But that's my really quick review of it. I'm sorry, you guys talk. I want to see you guys do it out.
I'm in the same boat as you. I think that when I first watched it, I thought it was a pretty good movie, but on rewatch, I really, really loved it. It got really enhanced for me. I understood a lot more of the subtleties, the nuances that are going on in it, much more the second time around. And I agree with you totally that this is probably one of the most gorgeous movies I've seen in the 2010s. There's a quote from Roger Ebert that says that a big mistake in film was transitioning from black and white to color. And when I first heard that quote, I was like, wow, what a pretentious hack. But then when you watch movies like Cold War and Roma, you're like, man, he was so right. These movies are so beautiful looking. And I too, I'm really fascinated in Cold War history. I've been listening to a Cold War podcast for a couple of years now by the Life of Caesar guys. So I'm really interested in all this stuff. And obviously I really like Europe. So, and this movie takes place in two different countries. So I was really into that as well. And the romance worked for me so much more on the second view. And I think, Mark, if you watch it again, you probably would even like it more. And this movie's incredible. And only complete idiots who have no taste in film would dislike this movie. That being said, Tyler, what do you think of Cold War?
So for Blackhat's a really, really great movie. No, I'm just kidding.
So Blackhat, I like Blackhat more because you couldn't really tell what was going on in any of the shots.
So this is I can't believe this movie's incredibly critically acclaimed. I was baffled by how well received it was. It was nominated for 3 Oscars in it came out 2018 to the 2019 Oscars.
Yeah.
It was nominated for Best Director, understandable, Best Foreign Language Film, and Best Cinematography, which is also understandable. This movie is frustrating to me in a few senses. In the fact that the framework for a masterpiece is there. And
because it is a masterpiece.
Okay, so I want to argue a few things. First off, again, like I said, the framework for a masterpiece is there. Visually and technically, this movie is astounding. I'm very intrigued by contemporary uses of black and white like movies. Some I feel like don't kind of like kind of like Matt said, some just don't kind of work. Some like the use of black and white for an artistic kind of style just doesn't really serve any purpose to the movie. But in Cold War, I found kind of like it added this very like somber and gray tone to kind of an already somber and gray world. I thought it added so much to it. And this movie has a large emphasis on lighting, was I think that really stood out to me. Characters are often kind of like enshrined under lights, and the lighting is really putting emphasis on the important people in it. It's really great.
Like any movie?
Like any movie, yes. But especially this movie in the black and white accentuated it. I hate this sometimes. I hate doing this sometimes. That being said, narratively, I couldn't connect to a single thing in this. I think this movie is about 15 minutes too short, and the relationship I didn't get behind at all. I think they spend too little time at the beginning developing it, and that leads to the movie's events after having no connection with me whatsoever. And since the movie's entirely about the relationship between the two people and how like tumultuous it is over time and how it's affected by kind of like the Cold War politics, I didn't connect with this movie at all. I really struggled with it because I was watching it, I'm like, this is so beautiful. Like, this is just an incredible movie to look at. And then I felt nothing at all. Matt, I can see you.
Mark,
like,
is there a way to like block to like mute Tyler from the chat from now on? Just like
We gotta figure that out.
Yeah, because
you're telling me you didn't think the relationship was rushed or underdeveloped at all.
well, I think that it's more real. I think it's more grounded than like About Time or La La Land or any of that crap.
First off, rude. So here, okay. This movie's 81 minutes. This is by far the shortest movie we've ever done here in Film Fraud, second to only The Marine, which is like 91 minutes, I'm pretty sure. I don't think we've even, like, we're hitting to like almost not a full feature film kind of length, because I don't know, do you guys know what the credentials, like, runtime for a feature length
I think
movie
below an hour is like considered a short film or something.
Considered a short film. I want to compare this to a movie I watched recently, a couple months ago, by South Korean filmmaker Kim Ki-duk, who did summer, spring, fall, winter, and then blah, blah, blah. He did a movie called 3 Iron, which is a movie that's two main characters never speak to each other at all. It's a movie where silence is kind of...
Talking about Cold War today?
Yes, I'm trying to back my point. I hate you. It's basically... what this movie lacks is our characters spending time together. And I really felt that once, spoiler, we start getting into kind of like time starts moving a lot faster. And we don't, I feel like, have enough time with these characters spent to really build anything and any emotional heft to their actions at the end. What do you guys think? Like,
so I disagree. So basically the movie follows the two characters we're going to be talking about are Zula and Victor. And Zula is this Polish lady from like a poor community, and Victor is he's like a musical agent kind of. He's a musician and sort of composer as well. Yes, and he's basically been instructed by the Soviet Union to like form a Polish troupe to sing Polish folk songs. And one of the people he hires is Zula. And for me, like you said, the heart of the movie is the romance, and I think that to a degree you're right, but I think that the Cold War is a bigger deal to the movie than like the way you made it sound. It's weird because I think this movie's very grounded, as I just said, but I do like the subtleties of the relationship. Like you get the feeling that he sort of connects with her initially when she sings for him. And there's that one scene where he's like, "Oh, do you like my work or do you like me?" And then you kind of understand from there. And then like there's like the hookup scene, and I liked how like just sort of like it was just a thing that's in their lives, and I kind of like that aspect of it. I don't know, Mark, what did you think?
Yeah, I think this movie treats the audience with a lot of respect. I mean, you're sort of let's peer in the relationship at this moment, and then we'll go here, and then you have to fill in the gaps between those 2 points. And I like that. I think like in the first 30 minutes, I was like, okay, I think I have an idea of where this film's gonna try and go to, West Berlin. It's not gonna work. Guards are gonna stop them. Oh no, they're separated. Stuff like that. And It didn't. It didn't. It just went. He gets out, and then 3 years later they meet up, and there was one point where I questioned. I was like, "Is this? Do I buy this?" And when I came to that point, after like 5 minutes of thinking about it, I was like, "I do buy this relationship. I think it works." And I do think that the Cold War itself, I agree with you, Matt, is the bigger aspect of the film, and I think that's like one of the absolute strong points of it. It's believability, and and sorry, I'm losing my train of thought right here. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
articulate it, but I agree with you, Matt. I bought the relationship, but I think the Cold War is the bigger aspect.
I also think that the Cold War setting itself is preventing the characters from like achieving like the typical like movie romance. Like they have such little downtime and such little moments of peace that when they get those moments of peace, it's more like how am I putting this? Like they make the best of like the small moments they have. I think that if they tried to do like a traditional build to a romance, it would just kind of take away from the whole fact that the Cold War is completely taking over their lives.
But there are
as well.
scenes developing the relationship that don't have any impact with the Cold War. I talk a lot about the stuff I think a lot about the stuff in Paris. Um, Specifically when they're at that party and Victor is kind of like neglectful of her, and then she gets jealous of Irene. And this stuff isn't stuff impacted by the Cold War. This is pure relationship stuff. This is what the movie is kind of centered
Well,
around.
no, that's wrong because she was in Italy for a long time as well.
But now we're in Paris, and now
But the whole point was they were separated for a long time because of the Cold War.
yeah, but now they're together, and then that middle
But what
section of
leads
the
to
movie.
the negligence is because they've been separated for a long time.
No, well, there's scenes of okay, so that's actually an interesting question, and that's actually an interesting point because I can view that both ways. I view that as their time apart and their kind of like the outside politics impacting the relationship, but then I also see stuff where she looks at Irene, basically sizes up Irene, goes like she has a nice back, but and she gets jealous and then kind of like skirts away to do her own thing, and it's just like it's this interesting thing because you're right, it is impacted by the outside politics, but there's also this stuff where they try to place heavy emphasis on the relationship aspect of it, which is this is like an interesting dichotomy. And I feel like it's a wonderful test case in like, can a short movie where our characters don't spend as much time together at the beginning, establishing the relationship, work towards the end when, again, spoiler alert, outside politics drastically separate the two. And for me, it doesn't. For me, I would have loved, because this movie starts off phenomenally. I just want to say it, like, when we're getting like those shots of like them singing in like this dilapidated town, and it kind of looks like very like post-apocalyptic. It's black
Yeah,
and
it
white.
does. That's a good
Everything
point.
looks run down.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. I was like, this is awesome. And then you get kind of like all the music tryouts. I'm like, this is great. And then they meet. You get that little kind of like spark, and then it's an immediately like full-fledged into a romance. I needed like 10 more minutes of that. I just needed more time with these characters because they are good characters, but I think they're just underdeveloped. The performances are great, the directing's great, the cinematography is great, the score is great. They're just very underdeveloped to me. And I really struggled with that at the end, which we'll get to, I guess, probably later on in this episode.
So, at what point in the movie would you like to have seen more relationship development? Like in the beginning?
At the beginning,
were...
I would have loved if this movie was in 90 minutes and spend an extra 10 minutes between the first audition and then by the time they hook up after the first recital. Build up that kind of like first sexual encounter because we really don't get a lot. And I get the whole kind of like real aspect of it of, sometimes you just feel a spark, you're attracted to the other person, it just kind of works like that. But I don't think we've had enough like establishment because if the rest of the movie was not a tragic story, then I feel like it works because you can take that experience and build off that, but then the characters become separated and then they rejoin and you're supposed to believe that they're, that initial spark is what keeps them going. I just didn't see it. I can't get to it. I can't agree with it.
I think I buy into that because what actually happens is because like the whole idea of like the forbidden love or whatever, it just sort of enhances all their emotions. Just the idea that they can't be together makes them want to be together even more. And so just when they're making that eye contact after like the first like theatrical performance, and then cuts them in the bathroom. I was like, yeah, this makes sense. And then you sort of like what I mentioned before, like it just sort of like you get a little time skip, and you see them like laying in a field together, and I just it was like, okay, this is how the movie's gonna go. I get this, and I was just on board. I was on board with that fact. I'm not sure if
Yeah, there's a quote from when she's in Paris and she talks to Irene, like the Victor's like other French love interests, and she says that when she was translating the Polish folk song into French, like they changed one of the metaphors, and Zula's like, what does this metaphor mean? And Irene is like, oh well, it means that with true love, like time doesn't matter. So I feel like that really works here because it's like the passing of time is purposefully like sort of nebulous in a way because it's just like they just pick things up right where they are as soon as they are back with each other again. So it just worked for me. It just seems like more like coincidences keeping them together, and it's supposed to be the director himself said the movie is like purposefully melodramatic, and I can see like why like the two like the contrast of like a realistic movie and sort of melodramatic kind of like somewhat coincidental movie can be bothersome, but I just really liked it.
Did you guys know what this movie's kind of like based off of?
It's based off of the director's parents.
Yeah, the director's parents who kind of had this like on and off thing, and then they ended up. Okay, so spoiler alert, big spoiler. They end up dying together. Not the characters. That's we can talk about that. But his parents in real life end up dying together, and you kind of see that a little bit of like that influence because there is that kind of like personal aspect. There's again a lot of focus on like facial appearances and like kind of like beauty and like the love of like music, which again, love music. I love when music's reminds me of like John Carney's Once, came out in like 2007, where music is kind of like the foundation for this relationship. John Carney's the guy who did Sing Street.
Yeah.
And Begin Again. I love all those movies. And I say there's a framework for masterpiece here because there is. And while you guys might think it's a more complete framework, sorry, I think again, Matt and I, 90-minute movies like the perfect thing. And if this was an extra 10 minutes at the beginning, I think it would have worked wonders. I think we would just get a few more scenes of them just interacting together. This unlocks a huge portion of the movie because we're supposed to be emotionally invested with these characters. I think Mark, you said when they kind of start getting into time skips and stuff like that.
What do you think of like the Paris stuff though?
So that's the interesting stuff. When the characters are together, it's an interesting movie and it's a good movie. When we're seeing them kind of dancing and it's this almost fairy tale aspect, that's what I wanted. That's the kind of stuff where you kind of see that and you go through the turmoils of the movie and stuff like that and of the relationship. But then you get to the stuff at the end. And that's when I really start to struggle with it. Like a lot. Like I was kind of like checking out a little bit of this. I don't know what you guys thought of that.
I was sort of the inverse. My attention sort of waned a little bit at certain points when they're in Paris. Like there's some very exciting sequences when they're like, at the bar and everyone's dancing and like, I think Rock Around the Clock comes on and everyone's just, dancing. Yeah. But I think as soon as Zula comes into Paris and the relationship starts to blossom again, that's when my attention waned the most. But opposite to you, Tyler, when things go back to Poland, that's where my interest went way up because it got back to the Cold War stuff and those dynamics. So
Is this podcast become a coerced hit piece against me now? Are you guys?
Well, I actually agree with Tyler a little bit on this.
Yes.
I mean, like I like both scenes a lot. I think the ending's great, but I think I was most invested during the Paris stuff because. So to a certain degree, I think that this is sort of like an unconventional build to a romance. Like Tyler seems to have been expecting like the big build up to happen in the beginning of like how they fall in love. I think that the point of the beginning is just like it just was like a casual hookup thing that they sort of took a chance that maybe it could be more, and like Zula found him in France, and then when they're in France is where like things actually start to like develop between them, and then that's like our actual relationship forms, to me at least. And I liked how when they're like going over like the lyrics to the music and the passion that they found for each other in the music. Then you can see like when she's doing the rehearsal in French, you can tell that Victor's like, I don't feel like any of the passion here, that like of what you're singing. We have 40 minutes of recording tape. Do it right this time. So like I think that a lot of you can tell like where the relationship is going based on like song and her performance, and her live performances and stuff. So I thought like that stuff was where I was most interested. And plus, I got a weird like Michelangelo Antonioni influence in this movie, and in his other movie Ida, which I watched this week as well, especially in his filming of like club scenes. So like I really like that stuff, and you can tell that not only does this movie feel old-fashioned in the black and white, cinema filming, but also like in like the way the shots are framed, there's more still shots that you can see in the older movies in the Michelangelo Antonioni movie. And I really liked like his commitment to making things look old-fashioned. I love it like when they're in a club and like you can see like the smoke rising from like a cigarette and stuff like that, and like that tracking shot of her drunk out of her mind dancing to Rock Around the Clock is like fantastic. It's such a great sequence.
There is first off, man, I'm very curious. How was Ida?
Ida is decent. If you thought like this movie was emotionally like detached, like you're not gonna like Ida, because Ida. My problem with Ida is that it felt like Pawlowski, the director, is very interesting because he's not very like emotional. He's just like, because like Ida basically follows this nun, and it's interesting you say that his parents died at the same time, because in Ida the nun discovers who her parents were and that they were both killed by they were both Jews in Poland, killed by a Nazi at the same time, and executed. And she was able to escape because she could be disguised as someone who is not, as like she was a baby, and she could be disguised as someone who wasn't Jewish. So that's how she was able to survive.
How does the
and
directing
my problem
translate?
Like, I think this movie is much better than Ida, because I think Ida is too emotionally detached from me, because all these like crazy things are happening, and Ida's just like
just kind of sitting there. You're like, oh my god.
But I mean, I would encourage you to watch it, because I think it has good stuff to it. But if you do think that Cold War needed more of like an emotional attachment, then Ida has even less of that.
how's oh god, by the way, first off, I'm already feeling I'm not gonna like Ida just based off of that. Two, how does the directing transfer over? Is this kind of his style? These slow, stagnant shots.
So like a lot of the shots earlier on where like people are kind of he frames shots interesting, because like people are like sort of down here, and there's a lot of not gray space, because there's things going on in the background, but it's filmed that way. Basically like every shot in Ida is like that. I think that he became more versatile as a director in Cold War. I think Cold War is just basically above and beyond way better than Ida. And Ida was the film he did before him. That won Best Foreign Film in 2015.
Did it really?
Oscars.
Wow.
Yeah. So interesting stuff like that. But I do like that framing to a certain extent, but there's way too much of it in Ida, and I think he's able to limit it a little bit more in Cold War.
Mark, you're more on the kind of like the technical side of that. What did you like of like the camera framings in this movie? Because I really dug them, honestly.
There are several instances where I was like, oh my god, that is clever. There's one part I want to talk on that sort of touches on this subject. And as someone who loves Russian film, I've noticed that, religion, like Russian Orthodox Catholicism, is a big proponent of a lot of Russian films, mainly because when in the Stalin regime, it was a godless sort of state, and
secular,
and that's it was a very small part of this film. At the beginning, you got that it was that shot from inside the church, and it looks up, and it's like that circular. I don't know what the geometric description of that is, but it's that the empty ceiling of the church, and it looks like a. Have you ever seen like a 360 like camera shot and how it looks?
Yeah. I know.
It looks. That's what this shot looked like, and I was like, wow. Like at the beginning of the movie, I saw it, and I was like, wow, this is a great shot.
Did you look up Did you look up at the sky, or did you like get real low next to your projector? And you're like,
yeah. I was like, whoa, this is so cool.
It's like I'm in church.
Yeah, and then it cuts to a very decaying old painting of Jesus on like the wall of the church, and the church is completely run down because nobody goes to church at this point in history. In the Soviet Union. And then later on at the end of the movie, we see that exact same circular shot, and then the shot of Jesus right before they get married. And I don't know. I'm just sort of like thinking about like how it's all circular. We're back at the same point. Circular shot.
Oh, damn. Oh,
Whoa.
whoa.
The
Oh my,
cycle continues.
oh my
Oh my
Um,
god.
I loved it. It's a small part. And there's also that scene where she's like, "Do you believe in God?" And before he even can respond, she's like, "I do." And you know, it was such a small, subtle part of it, but I loved it about the film. But again,
Can I
on the
throw some
camera
technical
shots.
terms for here?
Go for it. Throw out technical.
Because I watched an interview where he like goes into specifics about how he chose to direct the movie.
Ooh,
So
look at us.
everything in Poland. Wait, let me see if I can. Where can I find that quote?
Man, we're so perfect. I just want to say one thing while Matt's finding that. I do think this movie I would probably enjoy it a little bit more on a rewatch, kind of knowing.
Oh
what I
yeah.
know
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
Just saying. I hate all of you.
So he said that when he's filming in Poland, he used more wide shots to create like a more like expansive feel, and then when he goes to Paris, he purposely used like longer lenses to create like a more suffocating feel to like isolate the protagonists.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to like, because you know when you think of Paris, you think of like the cliche like romance movie setting. He said he wanted to kind of strip that away. You see that with like the Cold War background where like things look a little more derelict, and then also with the choice to like keep everything really isolated and like keep you from having like these like long shots of France. I think that was really interesting interesting decision and thoughtful decision to make.
Yeah.
Did you know
There
that,
was
Tyler?
No, I didn't. I'm very proud you did your research though.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed, honestly.
there was one shot that sort of kind of blew me away because it took me a second to like for my brain to understand what I was looking at, and it was I think after the first. Maybe it was the first theatrical performance of the troupe in Poland, and it's Victor and his like partner.
I know what you're
that,
talking
that
about.
woman.
Yeah.
And they're against the glass.
Yeah.
Like that big glass wall. And when the shot first appeared, I didn't realize they were like sitting to the back of a mirror.
Same.
And I was like, "What lens is this? What? How do they do this?"
Because then the
when
guy shows up on
walks
two sides, and you're like, wait, what's going on? How does that?
And I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And
This is a sci-fi movie.
this is so cool. And then all the shots of just the performances themselves and how they were shot, and some of them were shot differently. You get like the wide shots, and then you got like shots of the women when they're singing, and the camera's sort of like panning behind them, and you can just it's like shooting over their shoulder, and you just see them like sort of going like this as they're singing. It's just like blew me away.
I just love the shot of when they're performing live and like the Stalin like posters
Oh
is in the
my
background.
God.
It's brilliant,
Oh my
and especially
God.
because the scene before they're talking about integrating more of like they're trying to put more propaganda into
World
the
peace.
Polish folk songs, and it's so great.
That was my favorite shot in the entire movie.
I was about to say that was mine as well.
That was my favorite shot. I was like,
I have a different favorite shot, but that's definitely up there. Before we get to Hallmark scenes, though, Tyler, you want to talk about the ending?
So real
Which
quick
I mean,
before
you
we talk
apparently
about
have problems with.
no, wait, hold on. I didn't say I had any problems with it. Hold on. You're putting words in my mouth.
I think you did say you have problems with me, but okay.
Did I? Wait, hold on. No, okay, hold on. Okay, now you're throwing me off because I didn't expect to be called on. Cold calling on me, you bastard. One of my favorite. We're talking a lot about shots like that, and I kind of reference like the lighting and how it's kind of like enhanced by the black and white, kind of like a style of the movie. And one thing I really dug was anytime there's kind of like a crowd shot. I don't know how Pawlikowski did it, but he always made it so you can immediately point out where Zula was in any of these crowd shots. And that, I was like, every time you went to a crowd and she's in it, you could always just pinpoint exactly where she was.
Yeah.
I don't know if her.
I think it's part of the director and part her performance.
You think so? Okay, yeah. But I should clarify. Performances in this movie are really incredible.
Yeah.
Like they're really, really great, and it's kind of astounding to watch. Like there's a few. Just like even moments where the guy who plays Victor, I'm not even gonna attempt to butcher the name, but even scenes where he's just kind of like walking around, you just kind of get like the sense of like history and like baggage on him. Like he's just a little more slunched.
He's very
like,
world weary.
Yeah, he just looks hot, and he's just a little more like he's longer facial hair, and it's very, very like physical performance, but it's also kind of a subtle physical performance, which I really, really like.
Or like when he's playing piano and he's like looking at Zula. You feel like that connection there, and also I think the woman's name is Julia Kanug or something. I'm not even gonna attempt to pronounce it, but
do you want me to try it? Do you want me to? Yeah. Okay, hold on.
Let's her character Zula is like she's so volatile, but she's very like crazy mood swings, but at the same time you are able to relate to her, which I think is really like a really good testament on her behalf, because like her character has like these crazy mood swings, but still she keeps it, you know, contained to like a more realistic character.
Yeah. I just want to throw out there, it's the person who plays Zula is Joanna Kulig,
Yeah.
and the person who plays Victor is Tomaz, Tomaz.
Yeah.
Throw me off there. Kot, Kot.
Mm.
So, you're welcome. Yeah, no, I completely agree. They're like the performances, everything on a technical and performance-wise, this movie just kind of clicks for me. I mean, they're just like, this reminds me, and I was wondering when I was watching this if it kind of like if it reminded you of like, because I've seen season 1 of Mr. Robot. I know, praise, thank you. I've seen season 1 of it, but there's a lot of those kind of shots where it's just like unique framing, and I really kind of dig that sometimes. And like you said, it's really intelligent, unique framing in this one because there's always stuff happening in the background. It's never a unique framing with empty space for kind of stylistic purposes. It's always to kind of like capture like this how small these characters actually are in the situation. Like a lot of stuff with like Victor and Irene, they're just kind of filmed like down low in a crowd. It's kind of like it's really intelligent filmmaking, and I completely get why he was nominated for Best Director.
Mm-hmm.
There's everything from that kind of just blew me away. Like I'm very curious to check out Ida just for the kind of directing of it, honestly. Like I know it's not super long, and I'm curious about it. What do you guys think about the ending of this movie?
Mark,
It's all you, Mark.
Want to go?
So I assume they had some sort of like, you know, poison, those pills, whatever they were.
Yeah.
I really, really like the scene in the church. And then the last scene when they're sort of staring off into like, you know, the sunset. I'm not sure. I need to see it again. Yeah, it's again, there's a lot of scenes that I need to digest a second time in order to like fully get an idea of what I think about it. So I'm gonna have to defer to Matt on this one.
So my only like big problem with it was like the scene where she's singing and then you get like a glimpse of her other family and that's just like completely blown over.
Yeah.
I was really confused by that stuff. Like it's like barely. I guess it's the point is that she doesn't really care about them, and I guess that's like the point. But still, it felt very sudden. And yeah, it's like the ending's so nebulous. But I think that it works for this setting because I mean the Cold War is very nebulous as well. And I think I ultimately ended up really liking it.
I want to agree, Matt, with you. I did have an issue with like the random like family aspect and kind of like it does feel a little glossed over. I want to harken back. This is just gonna be an episode of callbacks to Paddleton. Paddleton is filmed very objectively. The kind of the ending scene, and Matt knows what I'm talking about there. And this one, it's very similar in that aspect. They kind of just take the pills. Like there's no like big hurrah moment. Like let's do it. She just goes, "You take a few more because you're bigger," and they just kind of like chew them down. And it's just like this very like matter of fact acceptance of what's happening, and I really dig that. I like these like brutal, realistic kind of like depictions of that. There's like a few other things like I wish his kind of like time as a prisoner was expanded on a little bit because that's I believe he spends 5 years as a prisoner. Am I mistaken?
Yeah.
He's supposed to spend like 15, but he got out early because I think he had like connections to get him out.
Yeah, and that I feel like that should have been like I wanted more time with that because I find the character of Victor interesting, and I want to see more of like what that kind of impacted him in some regard. Just a little bit more time. If this movie just was like 15 minutes longer of more character development, I think it would have worked wonders for me. But now I'm kind of I don't know. Do we want to go to Hallmark scenes? Matt, you've kind of like zoned out.
Yeah, I was just reading something from my notes. Yeah, so you guys have already kind of said yours. Like you guys think the Stalin scene is probably
well. That's not my favorite. That was my favorite shot. Okay. It's not my favorite scene in the movie.
I think my favorite scene is at the jazz lounge where she sings the folk song. And it's like a circular shot around her, and then so I think it starts with you looking at her face, and it goes around. You see like she's performing to a huge crowd, and then Victor is playing piano in the background, looking at her. I think that's my favorite shot because I watched the movie like 2 years ago, and I still love that version of the song. I love jazz music. I love jazz lounge music in general, and I just think that scene is absolutely incredible. And like the way like the lighting is on her, it's really really great. And yeah, just the song itself, I really really love, and I like the jazz, like the saxophone intro. It starts like you see them playing as well. it's just great. I love bands. I love jazz lounge stuff.
You're so cool. You're so cultured. You're so
Yeah.
lovely, Matt. Mark, what's your Hallmark scene?
It's it's hard for me to pinpoint a specific scene that I think is like my favorite. I would say that probably the first 30 minutes before Victor escapes to West Berlin, that's probably one of my favorite parts of the film. I also love the scene where Rock Around the Clock is playing and everyone's dancing. I love that scene. But there, specifically, I think my Hallmark scenes are actually Hallmark shots. And again, we discussed the Stalin and Lenin shot of all the dancers in the big arena, and then just some of like a lot of I think mostly the shots when they're performing, because it's just like usually I think there's like 30 seconds that the director gives us to see every performance that's sort of going on in the movie, and it's just like short, concise, and like incredible to look at. Just the way he frames each one, and like I was speaking before about like that mirror shot that you don't know is a mirror shot until like 10 seconds later. So yeah, I was blown away by both the director's work and as well as the cinematography. That's my Hallmark part.
That's your Hallmark part. All that entire Jesus.
Yeah.
I have two. This one is a smaller one, but it's that moment when they kind of like meet in the cafe and they're walking back and they hug. She's like, "Don't go any further," but then she kind of comes back to him. I really dug that. I was like, that's nice. And then the ending scene. I really kind of dug that final like objective, just like, here, you take more. And then just like I kind of was like, yes. I was like, I want more of that. I want more of people taking pills and dying. No, I don't take that out of context, please, internet.
Take it out of context, please.
Don't take it out of context.
Yeah.
Now that I
assume the worst.
Assume the worst. Yes. Yeah. I mean, like kind of what Mark says. There's a lot of like when they're in their Paris apartment, and they're kind of just like writing and doing work, and they're kind of like slightly like passive aggressively arguing about the music. I was like, man, that's a pretty shot. I kind of like that stuff. Yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch. I was a sucker for the ending shot of of the pills and things like that.
Yeah.
Should we
I thought it was like this really great romance movie, and Tyler's like, I like the part where they kill themselves.
Wow, you hate the characters that much?
Yeah, it's just I want it to be over. No, what do you guys want to do for Mark's sleepy time? Mark's sleepy time.
I don't have any sleepy time moments.
You don't have a single sleepy time moment?
No.
Mark, this is your section.
Or black. Well, there's no Blackhat moments, obviously.
Yeah, there's
no
no
Blackhat
report.
I would say Mark was sort of sleepy. Like he was like 90% conscious during certain aspects of the Paris section.
I want to know what 90% conscious Mark versus 100% conscious Mark is like. I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
More like 60% conscious.
Oh.
How about that?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's an amazing way to frame this section.
Yeah.
So wait, do I have to also call myself Mark now? Is that kind of what's happening?
Yes.
So
yes.
Mark was about 50% conscious during the prisoner stuff because I thought it was very underdeveloped and I wanted more. I was like, ugh. And that's when you kind of like 50% conscious when you kind of check your phone, you start to fall asleep. 100% unconscious is Matt staring at the black screen during Blackhat and getting more entertainment out of that than Blackhat itself, which is the greatest thing I've ever heard, by the way. I've thought about that.
What do you think? What romance do you think is more developed? The romance between Muscle Hacker Man and Lady and Blackhat, or Zula and Victor in Cold War?
So going on to grades. So grading this movie, I don't want to answer that question. Grades. We grade stuff on an ABCDF scale, no plus or minuses, and this is the episode where it's going to really bite me in the ass having no plus or minuses. Yeah. Matt, what are you going to give Cold War?
I think I'm going to give it an A.
Oh my God. This is the first time in a while you've given it an A.
Floored by it. No, I gave Nosferatu the Vampire an A.
Oh, that's right. I did.
I don't give out A's like candy like Tyler does.
Shut up.
I don't know. This movie definitely was like I thought this movie was like a B when I first watched it, and I think rewatching it has definitely elevated the ranking for me. And I recommend it to like anyone who likes history, anyone who likes European movies. I think this is one of the best you could watch from the 2010s.
Mark,
I'm gonna have to, since I'm constricted by our grading system, I'm gonna have to give it an A. and I'd give it a low A.
Yeah, same.
I don't think like my alternative would be I'd give this the highest B possible, but that doesn't feel right. Because I think there's just so many masterful things about this film that it would be a sin to give anything less than an A. Just putting that out there.
Especially when you give A's to Hacker Muscle Man movies.
Keep
The
going,
quote
keep going.
unquote most modern movie ever that came out in
Listen,
2001.
you're slowly ripping off my Band-Aid. Just come on, get through it. Come on, let's do it.
So to sum it up, this movie I unequivocally recommend it, and I will give it an A. And I think if anybody out there, just anybody, if they give it anything less than an A, then you'll know who the hacks are.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, now we're in the what we've been watching section. If you don't know what that is, we watch a bunch of different movies and TV shows during the week, and we talk about them on Film Fraud. So,
Yeah.
Tyler, what do you think of? Oh wait, first, yeah, Film Fraud Hall of Fame for Cold War.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So
We all gave it A's.
Do you really want me to grade Cold War now?
Yes, grade it right now.
So I'm gonna give Cold War a C. Here's the thing. This is where I'm very constrained by the grading system. Yeah, I know. Why are you looking for my movie taste? Where'd it go? I get it. You're so funny. Wow. I think I would enjoy this a little bit more in a rewatch because I kind of understand what I'm getting out of it. Because I think I expected a little bit more and I didn't get it. In terms of like a technical aspect, this movie's like impeccable in every regard. I just struggled, narratively with everything, and characters are. We've talked about this before. Characters are very important to me. It's why we don't.
They need the Blackhat scene where he goes. I was raised in a bad environment.
I'm telling you, I don't care what happens. I'm dying on that Blackhat hill.
I really hope Jeffrey Davidson and Francesca Muniz have seen Cold War, so they can just roast you in the comments.
No, they're not going to roast me. They're going to be on my side. I know you guys are.
No one's on your side.
No one's on my side. Goddamn. Yeah, so I'm going to give Cold War a C. This is another movie I'm keeping out of the Hall of Fame. There's Nosferatu the Vampire and now Cold War. Matt has kept countless movies out of the Hall of Fame. So, we're a little bit even now. 1 for 1, Matt. It's all on you and me.
Well, I mean, I also didn't give Blackhat an A, so my grading, at least a B for me still means a lot.
An A for me still means a lot. So.
An A means basically nothing.
No, it doesn't.
No, yes, it does.
You might as well not even give you grade. You might as well not even grade movies anymore.
Are you gonna rescind my grade privilege now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been rescinded.
You gave the Marine a B and Cold. You gave the Marine and Aquaman a B and Blackhat an A.
I have such great taste in movies. All right. Like Matt said, our what we've been watching section, so I can get out of this hellhole as fast as I can. I'm gonna eventually I'll like a movie that you guys like. I promise. Matt or Mark?
You need to have taste.
Yeah, I'd have to have taste.
Yeah.
Mark, what have you been watching, reading? What have you been up to? Tell us everything.
I've watched 2 movies and I've finished 1 book in the past week. 2 movies outside of Cold War. The first one being I watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. The John Candy, Steve Martin movie. It was just like on, TNT or something on Thanksgiving, and I watched it. It's good. It's just a good movie, good message, and John Candy's fantastic, and same with Steve Martin. I haven't read Roger Ebert's review, but the reason why I sat through it all, and that's not like it was like a bad movie, like, oh, I had to sit through it, but I know Roger Ebert gave this a 4 out of 4, so I'll have to read that review. But a nice, lighthearted film about getting home for the holidays, getting home for Thanksgiving specifically. So you'll have to wait another year to watch it. I'm sorry. And then I watched Wall Street, the Oliver Stone movie that came out in 1987, starring Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen, as well as Martin Sheen. And it's good. It's I know it's a lot. I remember I watched a documentary earlier this year called Generation Wealth, and it's like about like really rich kids from the 90s and like where they are now, and as well as like a bunch of like super rich like investors being interviewed. And I remember one of the investors who was being interviewed during this documentary said, he's talking about this film Wall Street, and the character that Michael Douglas plays is Gordon Gekko. And in Wall Street, Gordon Gekko is like the ultimate investor. He, ethics are thrown out the window, and he's all about the money. And so in this documentary, this guy's like, I'm real life Gordon Gekko. Like that movie's like, it's all about me. And so it's like, okay, I got to watch this thing. And so I watched it last night, and yeah, it's solid. Michael Douglas is obviously he's just absolutely phenomenal. It's like he disappears into the role. It's like, that's not Michael Douglas. That's Gordon Gekko himself. So I watched that on Prime Video. If
Isn't Charlie Sheen in it as well?
Yes, I said that.
Yeah, he said
He's
that.
in Martin Sheen.
Yeah,
No,
they
he's in
both
Charlie.
are.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what?
Yeah, Martin Sheen actually plays Charlie Sheen's father in the movie. Because get it, they're like father and son in real life.
Whoa!
It's also
Oh my
crazy to
God.
think that like Martin Sheen looks like this movie was filmed like 9 years after Apocalypse Now, but it looks like Martin Sheen aged 20 years. So
Wait, Mark, did you know there's a sequel to this movie?
yeah, Wall Street Money Never Sleeps. That's
Yeah,
on Prime Video as well.
With Shia LaBeouf, are you gonna watch it now? It's also directed by Oliver Stone. I mean, you might as well finish it. You have to. You got to know where these characters end up. Come on,
I
Shia
don't
LaBeouf's
care.
in it. Shia LaBeouf's a good actor.
Nice surprise.
So that I watched that. Recommend it. It's 2 hours. It's a good film. And then I read the book It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis, and it's like a cautionary tale about how fascism could come to the United States, and what guys that would come under. And yeah, it's a good story, but I really hated the prose. I really did not like it.
Give me some good ideas of how to start fascism in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll relay those notes I took to you, Matt,
Alright, yeah,
because I know
sounds
you'll need
good.
them.
On our other fascism podcast,
Yes,
which
yes.
is only available on Patreon.
Yeah. I'm getting a much better idea of like what my sort of tastes in books now, because I've been reading so many like good books like The Beautiful and the Damned and Of Human Bondage and like these great classics, and then reading this, I was like, oh wow, this is like outdated. The prose itself, it was just like so much unnecessary. I would like to like, hopefully one day one of you guys recommends it, because I'd like to talk about just the way it's written, because it just did not work for me. I just sort of gritted my teeth and got through the book. But the other book I'm reading right now is I was like,
Taking it in front of him.
the other book I'm reading right now is called The Master and Margarita. I started it like a day ago, and I'm already 200 pages in, to give you an idea of how much I like the story. This is a satire on Stalinist Russia, so
Ooh.
good timing. Here's how I'm going to sell the book. It's obviously
Behind a
hilarious.
register?
Shut up. Just be quiet, please. Blackhat boy.
If you hadn't given Cold War C, I actually would have thought that was good.
There's a gigantic talking cat in this book, and it's hilarious. So, highly recommend. So that's what I've been reading and watching.
Do you want who also has talking cats in their books? Haruki Murakami.
Oh, who cares?
Yeah, no one cares about Haruki Murakami.
You haven't read it.
Go watch Burning again, loser.
Yeah,
Go watch Burning again. It's a great movie.
he has Bernie and Cold War on the same grade.
No, I don't. I give Burning an A.
You give, Blackhat.
Yeah.
You have Blackhat and Bernie on the same grade.
No, I fucking love Burning. Mark, is that all you've read and watched and stuff like that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt.
Well, I watched a movie recommended from Tyler. I watched Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter,
Yeah!
and Spring. I really liked it.
No, you can't do that. Don't like it.
I hated it. I'm gonna give it a D.
Yeah.
I think that I didn't understand a lot of like the Buddhist like metaphors specifically, but I think there's a lot of just like real life struggles that the characters go through that makes it relatable to anyone. It's very meditative. It just takes place in one area in I don't know what country, but it's like on a lake, and it's like a shack where like these two monks live like in the middle of the lake, and it's like structured like a play, both like visually and it's like narrative script structure. Yeah, every like new season opens with the doors opening and going into the shack. I thought it was really good. I think if I watch it again, I'll get a lot more out of it. But as it stands right now, I think that it deals a lot with like regret and the passing of time, and I think that it was really interesting.
What'd you think of the ending, by the way? Just
Um,
without spoiling
hated
as
it.
much. You hated it? Good.
Yeah, I hated it.
Bastards.
The audio was bad in that scene, so
Yeah.
I decided
So
I
you
like
gotta
so
bump
much.
it down.
I decided I couldn't pay attention to any other aspect of the movie besides the audio.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I also saw Werner Herzog's documentary Grizzly Man on
What was it?
Amazon. It was very good. Werner Herzog is just the man. I just love
the
listening to
man.
him talk. But like the Grizzly Man himself is like this. So it's a very interesting documentary because Werner does a good job of like covering all different aspects of this Grizzly Man's life. So we don't know who he is. He's like this guy who like for like 16 summers in a row would fly to Alaska and live with bears during the summer. And he would just film these documentaries and be right next to the bears while they're talking. And in 2003, he got murdered by a bear.
Whoa.
Yeah, and they
Wait,
recovered.
not Herzog, right? That's just not
No,
really,
the
okay.
guy, the Grizzly Man.
Wait, I like how you said he got murdered by a bear, as if a bear can murder somebody.
He was
Like
killed.
like a bear stabbed him with a knife or something.
Yeah, the bear
Stabbed
had
him
it
with his
intent to
claws
kill.
in his mouth.
Oh, okay.
Oh wow, okay.
It's assault and battery. Wait, what's it? Assault with a deadly weapon.
Wow. I
And
hope that bear's in prison.
Yeah. Well, no, I got shot. Like a bunch of like
By
rangers
Werner
came and
Herzog.
like gunned him down.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jesus.
Herzog came and killed him. But it does a good job of like exploring like this guy who like kind of lived like a pretty normal childhood, but then apparently he like flew to California to become an actor, and he's supposed to take Woody Harrelson's role in Cheers, but then the role went to Woody Harrelson instead, obviously, and it like destroyed him mentally, and then eventually he like got into drugs, and then he got out of it, and then he decided to start flying to Alaska to start to like protect the bears, and like he became like this huge advocate for bears and would go to schools and stuff like and teach like little kids about like what he does for a living. And it's interesting because like a lot of the things he does feel is very generous, but then at the same time it feels like he's trying to like inflate his own ego at the same time. So they do a good job of mixing the dichotomy of who this guy really is, and they have a lot of good footage of him. It's so nerve-wracking seeing him talk to the camera right next to a giant bear. Like you can't really explain it until you actually see it happen. And it's really, really interesting, and I recommend it. And I think I saw 2 more movies, but I'll go through them real quick. I saw Ida. It was good. I already kind of talked about it. I think you like Cold War, you like this movie. And finally, last night I watched Prospect, which is like a low-budget sci-fi movie it came on 2018 on Netflix. It has sorry about that. People came. So I watched Prospect 2018 movie with Pedro Pascal, and I'm gonna talk about it more during my November recommendations. But it's like a ridiculously solid character drama that like takes place in a sci-fi setting. It's on Netflix, which you should check it out.
How long is it?
It's like hour 40.
Yes.
But it does a good job of knowing it's visual restraint, so it focuses more on the characters. It visually reminds me a lot of like Alien, mainly in like the way like the suits look and like the ship interiors. So I like that a lot. And like I said, I'm going to talk about it more in my recommendations. But if you get a chance to watch it beforehand, that'd be cool. We can talk.
Yeah. Ooh, you guys can talk about it together.
I almost watched it last night.
Really?
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
I did watch it last night.
If I had, we would have been aligned again, Matt.
I know. I did watch it last night. I was like, man, I think Mark's gonna watch it.
Did you watch 2 movies last night?
No, I watched 1.
Oh.
Oh no, I watched Prospect 2 nights ago.
Yeah, God, I figured you guys
you
out.
liar.
You
Yeah.
liar.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And usually like when people do like low budget movies, like really low budget movies, they are usually pretty bad. But this one really was good. And Pedro Pascal like kind of kills it.
Yeah. Sweet. So I watched 1, 2, 3, 4.
So the episode's over, right?
Yeah, episode's over.
Okay.
No one
I
really
watched
cares what Tyler has to
5.
say.
I mean, besides all the Lord of the Rings stuff, which you're talking about. So first, I watched The Godfather, the first part 1. I'm joining in on you guys. I'm getting there eventually.
I'll make him an offer he can't refuse.
This movie's kind of really incredible. It's one of those
That I
things
do
like
not forgive.
I know. Whoa. It's one of those.
It was
weird
like pretty good, but like I think Blackhat had better character
Blackhat was
development
better.
and shot,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna give it a B.
Shut up! I hate all of you. Let me finish. Damn you.
All right, go.
Okay, 30 seconds to Godfather. It's one of those movies that's been so like talked about that I was like, there's no way it can live up to the hype, and it absolutely lived up to it, and even more. It's 3 hours long and one of the fastest 3-hour movies I've ever seen. I kind of like came back and it was like 3 hours had passed and I had peed my pants because I hadn't moved. I was like, whoa, oh my god, this is amazing. Al Pacino was hot as hell in the 70s.
Yeah.
Al Pacino was.
I guess.
Matt's still
I have
talking.
to. Can you guys just keep talking?
Yeah.
Keep going. I've seen the movie. Let's go.
Yeah. Al Pacino was hot as hell. Like, honestly. Like,
Oh yeah.
that dude could get it. Marlon Brando's great. I mean, I haven't seen too many movies with Marlon Brando in it, but I kind of am starting to like understand why he's so one of the most renowned actors of all time. He just
you want
like,
a good movie with Marlon Brando?
was it
On the Waterfront?
Yeah, I gotta watch
Yeah.
that one. But you can just like the way he just like commands naturally, just like the screen, and he's even more muted in his role in this one. It's incredible. God, I'm gonna probably watch Godfather Part 2 in the next week or so, because it is like 3 hours long.
3.5.
It's 3. Fuck me.
And I watched Godfather and Godfather Part 2 back to back.
What's
That
wrong
was
with
a
you?
long day.
What do you do? What the hell? How do you?
I
breathe?
watched with my family, and then my mom was like, "Let's just watch the second one." I was like,
okay, sure.
"Fine."
I'm very curious about Part 3 because of everything I've heard about it now. So that'll probably be the next few weeks. Let's see what else though. I rewatched 12 Angry Men. I had to. The Criterion came in for me.
You bought it?
Yeah,
Nice.
it's right over there. And I got it and watched it that night. It's just like the best movie ever. Like I love everything about it. Even like again, I watched it exactly 2 weeks ago after watching this movie. And just some of the the reveals were still getting me. I was like, oh, that first one he said like this knife, boom, is great. When that first kind of start where like they're arguing about like the validity of the old man's testimony. And then like the guy's arguing like it's not an exact science, and he's like, I know it isn't, and you're like, fuck, you're like, yeah. It's just kind of like astounding. One thing that really stood out to me on a rewatch was how they handle exposition. It's like it's so clever and well done and so hidden because they're just like, all right, let's recount the events so we can argue about them, giving the audience what happens and how it kind of can like shift over time. It's incredible. I cannot wait for our episode on it to watch it again. I'm so excited to watch it. I love this movie. It might be like my new comfort movie, which is weird, but I love it. I rewatched Baby Driver. Do you like Baby Driver?
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
There's certain aspects I was like, this is very impressive, and I don't feel anything.
So that's how I kind of felt in the first time, and on the second time, well, first off, I thought this movie was PG-13. It's not. It's like a hard R. And we watched it as a family with like my 8-year-old younger brother. And all of a sudden, like the opening scenes happened, and like John Bernthal's like, fuck, you. And I'm like, oh, I was like, oh no. So like, spoiler alert: when Jamie Foxx is impaled, like by like a skewer in Baby Driver, I had to like tell my younger brother to close his eyes because that's pretty violent. Matt somehow like lost clothes in that adventure. I just want to, Matt, you lost clothes in your adventure.
Yeah.
So Baby Driver.
Yep.
Yeah, it just happened.
Don't question it.
Baby Driver. I was able to appreciate the technical aspects a lot more on a rewatch. I still have issues with the characters, although I did find them a little bit more enjoyable on a second time around. Jamie Foxx and John Bernthal are great. And Ansel Elgort is not the best actor in the world. He's passable at best. But I mean, this is like a pure technical like savant of a movie, and I dug it a lot more on a rewatch. So do you guys remember when I put in our group chat that like
We like wrap this up because like I have a lot of things to do.
like the Takashi Miike movie Blade of the Immortal. Do you remember I put that? It kind of sucks, I'm not gonna lie. I watched it and I was like, eh. And then I watched Django Unchained, and it's like wonderful, kind of like exercise in a character study and what happens when a movie's lead character is not as interesting as everything else in the movie. It's good. It's Tarantino, all that stuff. Matt's basically forcing us to end early.
Yeah, well, no one cares what you have to say. Okay, so if you like Film Frauds, we're on YouTube and Letterboxd and all that stuff.
We're
watching next week. What are we watching next week?
Mank.
Yeah, we're doing Mank next week.
Yeah.
What did you think?
So we're gonna watch Citizen Kane as well. So watch that if you're a viewer.
Yeah. We're gonna watch Citizen Kane. Matt, what's our call to action, real quick?
Like, comment, subscribe.
Okay, Matt.
Bye,
Okay, bye, Matt. All right, thank you guys for watching. I'll get the final word and goodbye.